Chip, come on. Come on, come around. Here we go. We're gonna open the gate. Yeah. All right, so this has a little thing that I can slide. And I can either open the gate out or I can turn it and then pull the gate this way. Oh, you're on the wrong side, baby. There they go. You're going through. I'm going to open this up a little more. This doesn't need to be shut. Oh boy, they're really crowding in. Alright, so this is like the fourth day they've gone through the squeeze. And nobody's hesitating. They're just really... Oh, we got a couple stuck in the one-way door. Oh, you jumped over the fence. That was funny. And they are all through. That's good. I'm going to close this gate now. I can pull it this way. I think I've pulled it all the way. Yeah. All right, so that gate is now shut. And then I will... It's amazing. They can jump pretty high if they want to. And now I have this tied together. And that's closed, and that's closed. And we are done with that part of our chores for the day. And they're chowing the heck down. Good. All right, now I'm gonna feed the dogs. That was basically 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And it's that time of day. All the chores are done, and it's not horribly cold, and it's not raining, and it's not snowing, and the dogs are ready for a little attention. Of course, Spike is barking at something, because he is a good guard dog. Oh, you're coming over? You're coming over? All right. So, it's Friday, the 27th of February, 2026. And it's time to think about what I'm going to talk about for the Sunday message this week. So the big excitement is I took a webinar with a Cornell veterinary professor, doctor, researcher lady, and a PhD scientist in Maine. And the whole subject was basically flukes and I can't say it right. Menengeal worms, menengeal worms. I don't know. And it turns out the big killer of my sheep was this worm that gets into the central nervous system and tries to get up to the brain, but often ends up being in the spinal column, in the spinal cord. And it is carried by these little amber snails, and that's the snails we had. Those are the snails we had all over the place. And that explains why we weren't finding flukes in the liver. And evidently a single fluke in the liver can kill a sheep, and what flukes do is horrible. And there's like 3 different kinds of flukes, one that's not so common and a couple that are common. One that does show up in a fecal sample, 2 that don't show up in a fecal sample, and then the menengeal worm doesn't show up in a fecal sample at all because it doesn't complete its life cycle. The sheep do not spread it. They're a dead-end host for it, but it kills them. It does not kill the deer. So, oh my God, I learned so much, more than I've ever wanted to learn, and it terrifies me. And here's the other kicker. The researcher from Maine, the PhD, and I'll leave their names underneath because I don't want to disrespect their work, because they did really good work. They should get credit. When you find a teacher in the world, give credit to that teacher. Teachers are human. And the biggest thing is, if you're doing intense research, like, a little recognition goes a long way for a lot of us. Anyway, speaking as a songwriter who has trouble getting people to listen to his songs. Yeah, okay. So the kicker from the PhD researcher in Maine is that the farms that practice really good grazing, rotational grazing, regenerative grazing practices, they were the hardest hit by the menengeal worm. Menengeal worm? By the worm. The brain worm that was carried in the snails. Because their soils were moist. They had plenty of forbs, diverse forages, and the snails like to get underneath, let's say, burdock leaves or dandelion leaves or even thistle leaves. They like to get under those in the heat of the day and get shade, and there's moisture. Whereas the farmers who just did basically overgrazing, overstocking, overgrazing, very poor soil management, they didn't have any trouble with these particular parasites. So, yeah, that's the biggest kicker, that doing the rotational regenerative grazing practices, the AMP, adaptive multi-paddock, moving the sheep frequently, not overgrazing, that actually led to snails. And a snail population is indicative of healthy soils and moisture. However, the positive news with the brain worm is that only like 1% of the thousands and thousands of snails that they tested, only 1% had the actual parasite. So it's maybe less prevalent, but if there are thousands and thousands of these snails, and every step you take, you're walking on hundreds to thousands of snails, do not put your sheep there. Get them out of there. Get them to a much drier pasture at the top of a hill. The other piece is, you got to fence them out of ponds. You got to keep them away from ponds. And my training was, hey, you don't have to worry about the sheep around the ponds. They don't like water. They're not going to muck it up like cows. You got to fence cows out of the ponds. But you got to keep the sheep away from any wet areas. That's the big kicker. If you don't want your sheep to die, and the key is that Valbazen, which is like the only medication available in this country, there's another one which I forget off the top of my head the name of. It begins with a C, Clausen or Clausen or Klausnus or Klaumushkas. I don't know the name. I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm out in the field. I am a real farmer, I'm not sitting behind my computer all day. So Valbazen is not available, and they can't get the ingredients. I guess they're from China, and this was a problem even before the tariffs, even before the Trump administration. So we can't blame him, although it would be a lot of fun. It's always fun to blame somebody. But the medication's not available. So if you don't want your sheep to die from the brainworm, you gotta keep them in a dry spot, dry area. And the other thing is, the nice thing about the solar areas is that 99% of the time you can keep the deer out of it. But if a solar tech comes and leaves the gate open and then goes off to lunch, deer can wander in, and we don't want the deer in, because it's their parasites that our animals are picking up. So the positive thing about the brainworm, the menengeal worm, the positive thing about that is that the sheep don't spread it. The negative thing is that it kills them, and it can kill them pretty fast. Like, they may look fine in the morning, and then they may have symptoms in the afternoon, and then they'll be dead. by dinner, you know. But what are you going to do if they show symptoms? There's nothing you can give them, so they're pretty much dead. And you hope it's going to be fast. The larger the snail, these are the amber snails, the larger the snail, the more likely they are to have the parasite, I guess because they have lived longer. What else? Yeah, so keeping the deer out of where you keep the sheep, the only place you can really do it is in a solar system, because and not all solar systems have perimeter fences, but like the place I'm at right now, I mean, that's a serious fence. Could a deer jump over it? Probably not. It's pretty high. But that's always an issue. The other thing is like keeping the dogs in the areas where the sheep are going to go, to keep the deer out when the sheep aren't there. Like, yeah, my dogs stay with the sheep, so like I don't have a place where I just have the dogs, you know, to keep the deer out. And the other thing is the deer, like when we were at Canton Apples and we had our netting up and the dogs were with the sheep, the deer would come and bed down for the night like 6 feet away from the fence, and the dogs would bark for a while. And then, see, these dogs, they're not against deer, they just bark at anything unusual. And once the deer become usual, they don't bark at the deer anymore. But the deer know that it's safe there, because if a coyote shows up, the dogs will bark at the coyotes. So, oh my God. So it was like drinking from a fire hose. It was a 2-hour webinar and I learned a lot. And I'm glad I didn't know all this before I started, because it might have discouraged me from starting. And that's the deal is, you know, if you can manage it so that they're not in wet areas during wet times, you know, you're not going to lose a bunch of sheep. But if they're in a wet area and you have a wet spring or a wet summer or even a wet fall, although the incidence goes way down in the fall, the worst time is June and July. So if you have a wet June and July, these snails reproduce like crazy. And, you know, that the other thing with these amber snails is they climb up. So, you know, we're just taking the top third of the plant to keep everything healthy, but the sheep are going to eat some snails. So that's the whole deal. So hopefully that's helpful to those of you who are actually into sheep. And for those of you who are not so into sheep, but you're here for the spiritual uplifting message, my spiritual uplifting message for Farm Church this week is something I've said before. What does not kill us makes us stronger. The obstacles, the problems, the difficult times, the things that cause us to learn, the things that cause us to have to dig deep and put one foot in front of the other and just grit our teeth and keep going. Those are the things that build depth, that build confidence, that build wisdom, that build experience. The only way you can avoid making dumb mistakes is to have experience. And the only way you can have and get experience is to make dumb mistakes. But hopefully we learn from them. And hopefully Valbazen will be available soon. But if not, it's like you're on your own. Like, you got to manage your animals. And, you know, the animals that die versus the animals that don't die, you know, maybe there is some kind of immunity, or maybe it's just dumb luck. I don't know. Luckily, the snails are not hyper infected as far as we know. And there's a small incidence of snails being infected. But the chances are you're going to lose some animals if you are in the Northeast or the Southeast or the Northwest, any place where it's moist. If you're in the drier parts of the country, you have other problems. But wherever there's a lot of deer and I guess elk as well. This is going to be a challenge, and so that's the synopsis. Hopefully that's helpful. If it is, please let me know in the comments below. Bottom line is, no matter what you do, if you're following your dreams, if you're trying to do stuff with your life that not everybody does, you're going to have hard times. No matter what you do, even if you do everything according to all the rules, even if you do everything your mommy and daddy said to do, even if you were very good at school and you get a good job and you're a good worker, there's going to be hard times. So the key is to not take hard times as defeat. The thing is, learn from it, grow from it, adapt, find a new way to do it, a new way to think about it. That's our kind of lot as humans, is that we can evaluate stuff and we can find a better way to do it. And this is my better way right here. Isn't she so beautiful? Yes. What are you putting your foot on me for? Huh? Oh yeah, you're gonna snuggle up. Spike's mad at me because I yelled at him because he was putting his foot all over me. And now he's over here. And Luna's here. Yeah. All right, that's enough. I think that might be the Sunday message. That's all I have time for, so hopefully it's good enough for you guys. Again, I'm a farmer with a YouTube channel. This is my log. This is kind of my journal, so that 10 years I can look back and see how young I look right now. And see all the things I didn't know and all the things that I was blissfully unaware that were coming down the pike. Welcome to the future. Remember to breathe, folks. Remember to love the people you're with and to realize that there is no such thing as the perfect relationship, the perfect person, the perfect career. Everything comes with stuff. And our job is to take the stuff, take the manure, and turn it into fertilizer. Take the hard times and turn them into strength and wisdom and experience and better decisions. So that's it. That's my talk. I'm sticking with it. I'm sending out thoughts and prayers to those who need them. Sending out energy, positivity, optimism, hope for the future. And you might want to learn a little bit about Bitcoin before the whole world goes into a financial tailspin. Because there are rumblings that something big is coming down the pike. Find yourself a local regenerative farmer or start growing your own food. All right? Just a thought. And it's not just because misery loves company. It's the best thing I ever did, and it's the hardest thing I've ever did, is to start a farm. And but every afternoon I get, 20 or 30 minutes to sit down with some of my favorite beings on the planet, the sheep and the dogs. And I wish you could experience something as wonderful in your life. And hopefully you do. Hopefully you are. All right. That's it. Here's a song. I don't know which one it's going to be, but here it is. And so, yeah, peace, love, grooviness. Amen. Here's the song.
Clouds of dust and dandelion seeds and other things that spend their time in the sky. I've been working on healing the hurt, digging myself up out of the dirt, mending these broken wings so I can take flight. And I feel so dangerous, and I feel so alive. I get so receptive to the heavens, so thirsty for the sky. I feel like a peregrine falcon, untamed and unbound. It's been a long time since I've had my heart some great truth, but then I realized the weakness of words. Though I may be just a candle flame in a universe too huge to explain, that doesn't mean I can't speak my intent and be heard. And I feel so dangerous, I feel so alive. I get so receptive to the heavens, so thirsty for the sky. I feel like a peregrine falcon, untamed and unbound. It's been a long time since I've had my heart on the ground. So dangerous, and I feel so alive. I get so receptive to the heavens, so thirsty for the sky. I feel like a peregrine falcon, untamed and unbound. It's been a long time since I've had my heart on the ground. Myself from the chains of fear, climb up into the stratosphere, learn to quiet my thoughts so that I can see. I give myself to the calling wind, out to where the horizon bends. Unattached and at ease, I set myself free. And I feel so dangerous, and I feel so alive. I get so receptive to the heavens, so thirsty for the sky. I feel like a peregrine falcon, untamed and unbound. It's been a long time since I've had my heart on the ground. And I feel so dangerous, and I feel so alive. I get so receptive to the heavens, so thirsty for the sky. I feel like a peregrine falcon, untamed and unbound. It's been a long time since I've had my heart on the ground. It's been a long time since I've had my heart on the ground. It's been a long time since I've had my heart on the ground.
All right, thanks for listening to the song. I don't know what song you just listened to because I haven't decided yet at the moment that I'm making this video, but thanks for hanging around and listening to it. So I'll give you some sheep, I'll give you some puppies, and I'll see you next week. Leave a comment below, subscribe if you haven't. Thumbs up helps. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps me a lot. I'm closing in on 1,000 subscribers, folks. If you could join the gang here, join the tribe, join the farm, it would be awesome. I'd love to have you, and let me know who you are and what you're doing in the comments. I'm I try to answer every single one, and I still can at this point, so let me know, all right? I appreciate you very much. Peace, love, grooviness. Over and out. Amen. Boom. All right, Spike, you can come back. Come on, Spikey, come cuddle. Come on, buddy. Come on, Spike. Come on. Come on over. I yelled at Spike because he was pawing me. I just told him to stop. I didn't really yell at him, but... Is that hollow? Is that hollow in there? That's not your glove. That's mine. Not yours. Come on, Spike. Come on, buddy. Spike. Come on over. Come on. Come on, Spike. Come on, Looney. When you roll away from me, I can't reach you. If you want me to rub your tummy, you got to get close. Oh, you just put your paw. There you go. Come on, Spike. Come on, buddy. Good boy. Come on. Come on, good boy. Come on over. Come on over. There you go. All right. Now I can pay attention to you. I was making a video. And Luna's like, well, so much for me. I thought I was your favorite. What are you doing, Looney? Are you going to be a troublemaker? You going to be a troublemaker? Huh? Oh, what are you doing? You're going to climb up on me? Oh, she's sitting on me. Okay, honey. Of course, I can't really pet you there. Oh, boy.